Australia is one of the most biologically diverse countries on the planet. Home to more than 1 million species of plants and animals, many of which are found nowhere else in the world. This rich diversity has been shaped by our continent's past isolation. After all, we are an island nation. But introduced pests and diseases have been a serious problem since the early days of European settlement. Most people know about pests like the fox and the cane toad, but have you heard of myrtle rust, a disease that is threatening Australia's unique plant species?
Garing in the nami, Jojo Mapirana. Garing in the nami, garing in the nami, Jojo Mapirana.
She is carved by the seas and graced upon by forests of satinate trees. Sculpted by the winds, their branches reach for the sun. Orchestras of bird and insect erupt into song. Standing on sacred sand, I am strong. Oh, listen. Oh, how beautiful. Gugaga, the kookaburra, is special to my family. With my poppy, my grandfather. So it's beautiful to have a nice welcome. This place, Gari, and particular sites on Gari, I've had really beautiful experiences where country has revealed things to me, and I feel very honoured to have experienced those things and seen those things. This is a Syncarpia helii, satinae. They're endemic to Gari and Kulula coast on the mainland, and they're culturally and spiritually significant to Bachelor people. We call these big ones here spirit trees. This particular tree here is around 800 years old, so that's very special. And it's just massive. And it makes me think about how this tree started. It started as a little sapling, you know. We've recently found rust, myrtle rust, on a bunch of these saplings and re-veg. And it just makes me think, this one started off like that too. And those ones probably won't be able to get 800, years.
Myrtle rust, caused by the rust fungus Ostropoccinia cittii, is native to South America. It was first detected in Australia in 2010, and since arriving has spread rapidly along the east coast and across northern Australia. The spores can spread easily by wind, insects, animals, and even by people, making it hard to contain. This silent killer is affecting our iconic Myrtaceae, a plant family that includes paperbarks, lily-pillies, and eucalypts. It is attacking seedlings, saplings, and even our majestic old trees that have stood for 100 years or more, with some species now on the verge of extinction.
My name's Lindria. I've lived in the Tallebudgera Valley all my life. My husband and I have spent about 40 years doing regen work on our own property. When I first saw it, I didn't realise myrtle rust was here, and I saw this huge face of trees on the edge of the bush that had died, and I thought someone had sprayed them with herbicide. Then I discovered that myrtle rust was here, and myrtle rust was what was killing them all.
The creation story associated to this species has important understandings around sea level rise, landscape change, and other aspects on culture. Hoping not to lose the species, as it is important to us because of our story and our knowledges.
In 2019-2020, Australia's east coast experienced extreme wildfires, which caused devastation to many of our native ecosystems. The emergence of new shoots and masses of seedlings signalled recovery, but it also created ideal conditions for myrtle rust. The combination of fire and myrtle rust has affected the regeneration of a range of plant species, killing seedlings and reshooting trees.
We're standing in a site that was affected by a severe wildfire in Bundjalung National Park, looking at the impacts of myrtle rust on regeneration. And what we've seen with rust, it's particularly impacting on the Melaleuca species, so ones like this paperbark. And in some of those situations where rust is just repeatedly infecting, what we're finding is that, one, we're getting reduced levels of flowering. Two, these can't compete with surrounding vegetation because they are being impacted repeatedly by the fungus.
So this is a little Saturnae sapling here, and the thing about Saturnae is they actually require a disturbance like fire to reproduce. We can see that the myrtle rust has come and infected the new flush, or this new foliage here, which is susceptible to the rust, whereas this older, more mature foliage is more resistant. We can see some symptoms here like this scorched appearance, this dieback here, you can see that from the myrtle rust, as well as leaf deformity and these red purple leaf spots. And when you flip the leaves over, you can see the yellow spores, and that's how we know this was caused by myrtle rust.
As you can see, this tree's dead, and about to fall down if I shake it too much. And it used to be covered for a short time of the year in these beautifully fragrant flowers, just millions on any one tree, I would think, and then they would turn into heaps and heaps of these juicy black little tiny fruits that the birds loved. So it was, it was a larder for a lot of important little species for a long, long time. But they're all gone, and I only know of one that's left in the district now. It's not just the individual trees, it's the whole habitat that goes.
I think it's built into culture and kinship and totemic systems that country is the basis for everything. We are part of country just as much as the trees are and the animals are, so protecting those things is protecting us.
Something that is really important to highlight is the relationship between fire and myrtle rust. Everyone knows the bad burns. Everyone knows after our wildfires on Gari. Your bad burns, those high, hot flames that can damage the canopies and cause the forest to become stressed. Upside down country where it's all bare and brown up top and green down the bottom. Now those stressed out trees, they're going to produce, with the damaged canopies, they're going to produce a mass amount of epicormic growth, and that's all that new flush, all that new foliage that's susceptible. And so that makes it very vulnerable to myrtle rust.
It's just tragic. I just don't even like to think about it. I don't really come back to these areas much because I think, what did it used to look like? All I can see now is the dead stems and the fallen stems on the ground, and I think they've gone. What was it like and what's it going to be like? And the worry is that there are said to be more strains of myrtle rust in other parts of the world which are going to affect probably other Myrtaceae that haven't been slaughtered by this strain.
I've been working on myrtle rust now for about 12 years and really, seen before my eyes just species disappearing. It's one of the more depressing things and more challenging things I've ever had to work on. Finding a solution to manage this sort of thing once it escapes into a native environment is extremely challenging. But now we've actually got a team of people together with similar interests, looking at trying to come up with solutions, I suppose, to deal with this disease, which is a lot more encouraging than what it was when it was just a couple of us running around the bush.
So for a lot of these species, what we've been doing is going into the field and collecting germplasm material. So for some species, that means we're collecting cuttings. For others, that means we actually excavate entire suckers. And these plants then go down to the botanic gardens, and over time those plants can be used for things like seed orchards, where we might look at crossing one plant with another to see if resistance is passed into those seeds. It also gives us other options for looking at susceptibility trials too, so we can actually expose some of those plants to myrtle rust and actually gauge whether some of them have high levels of resistance than other plants. So we've had some really promising results from some of the species we're working on. And I think if we continue to do this work and continue to look for these resistant plants, we know we've got a potential solution in the longer term for this problem. And that allows these ecosystems to have some resilience in the long term to myrtle rust.
While there is no eliminating myrtle rust now that it is here, it is still possible to save species from extinction and reduce the damage to our plant communities. But action is needed. Biosecurity is everyone's business. Myrtle rust is a wake-up call, and we need to do everything we can to protect our natural environment if we want our children to grow up in a world as rich as the one we have been lucky enough to experience.